Hello everyone. So this is just going to be a quick rundown on the scaling system that we have for our short film. I wrote a plugin and I have placed it inside of our collab space in Dropbox. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pull that plugin and put it somewhere where you're not going to forget. So when you first open up a Maya scene, you'll just have the regular default grid, and this is fine, and it works, but it isn't very nice for our film. So what we're going to do is we're going to find where we saved our Maya script. It will be called probably the correct name by the time that I upload it, and you just simply drag and drop that into the scene. At this point, you can grab it in this corner here to reposition it where you would like, or if you have a second monitor, you can put it off over there. For demonstration purposes, I'll place it in this corner. So when you start off, you get this default grid. It's 12 units long, which isn't very large, and the scale is all sorts of whack. So the very first thing you'll do when you get ready to start modeling is you will click on this HS grid, and that will change the grid settings so that you can have 5 units squares, and that's perfect for what we're starting with. Additionally, you'll see other buttons here. The snap will allow you to snap without holding X, and it'll lock the origin point to the closest point on the grid. If this is turned off, this will no longer be the case. I'd recommend if you model by grabbing faces that you turn the snap on so that when you go to face mode and you drag out, you still stay within the size constraints. Additionally, we have larger and smaller. This simply makes the grid one set of squares larger or one set of squares smaller. We have these 3D grid nudge buttons that we'll look at later, as well as the align buttons that we'll look at later as well. What you might find important to start are these references. When you click on one of the references, it'll load in an object. For example, this is a wall with 0 transformations, but it will have a height of 40 centimeters, a width of 40 centimeters, and a depth of 2. Each one of these cubes represents 1 cubic centimeter. That is our scale. If you wanted to fit this on the grid, you would just hit larger. Additionally, we have the door, which is a little bit smaller than the wall. And then finally, we have the character, which serves to be a little bit smaller than the door. This is a great way to keep things relatively in relation to each other. Now let's go back to the nudges. So while we have this square, it's sort of like snapping, but if you had snap turned off, you could simply click grid nudge and it'll move it positively or negatively in the direction that you have clicked. If you want to align multiple objects together, you click which axis you want them to align on, and it'll average the distance between them. Amazing. If you were to hit stack, let's say everything is separate, when you align, it'll keep them from stacking. Align to last allows you to, say, select one object, deselect it, and then you can, when you align it, not have it's broken. Don't use this. Isolate simply isolates the mesh that you have selected as if you had pressed this button up here. The final tools that we can talk about on this grid are the grid settings up here. When you have 5 selected, it shows how many times these white bordered squares will be broken up. If I were to hit again, you would see that we have per big square, 1 square, iterated repeatedly. Bigger number, bigger squares, smaller number, smaller squares. That's all you need to know. Thank you, and please enjoy using the plugin.